And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Gen 7. Now, Gen 7 is a very anticipated game for me. When Plaid Hat Games came out with their Dead of Winter game years ago, it had this Crossroads mechanism to it, and they called this a Crossroads game. And then they promised that there'd be other games using this mechanism, and the first one that they said would be a space game. Well, instead they made a Dead of Winter sequel, then a Dead of Winter's expansion, and we waited for a while, but finally the space game is here. Now, Gen 7 has a very interesting premise. You are a generation on a ship that's leaving Earth and going to colonize a new planet. You are the 7th generation on this ship. You have never seen Earth. It's 7 generations ago. You will never see the new planet. It's 7 generations in the future. Seems kind of like a depressing existence of some sorts, but you find ways to keep yourself busy. You are a crew member with designated tasks that you need to do. Most of the year you spend in VR, keeping yourself occupied and having a good time, but then you get out and you do your jobs. But there may be more to this situation than meets the eye. Gen 7 takes you through that. You discover what's actually going on this ship. And, well, more than that might be some spoilers. Let's take a little bit of an overview about how the game works. Now, I'm not going to go over every rule of this game because partially I need to keep it vague. The thing is that Gen 7 comes with this plot book here, and this plot book has a whole pile of different things that are going to happen in it. And you're going to always start off with first shift, which will tell you how to set things up. You're going to read this story aloud, and then it's going to, as the plot advances, you'll turn each page and you'll discover new things. Once you're done with this story, you will go to a possible different ending. So you'll see 2A here, or you'll go to 2B, and then those will make you might go to 3A or 3B or 3C or 4B. You're going to have different things that you go to based on the decisions that you make. And these different pictures that you're seeing here that are also on the cover are going to be various plot points that might happen over the course of the story. So this is kind of how the game sets up initially, and what players are going to be doing over the course of a game generally. Again, I'm kind of speaking in general terms, is they need to accomplish some sort of goal. But what there is going to happen are these critical tasks are going to show up, and players are going to be needing to place dice there. See, players are going to start with some dice. You have some ordinary dice. Those are like regular workers who work for you. And then you have another 8-sided dice, which is your leader. And then you also have the possibility of getting a robot. Although if you're the robotics barracks, you'll start with this robot. You're going to be placing these dice on the board. Many times you'll be placing these dice in different areas, adding different resources either to the ship's stores or your own personal thing. And then you might go here and draw cards that will help you in certain areas. You can go here to get more crewmen to come help you, pulling them out of their sleep. You can go down to the robotics section to get those. And as the game goes by, more and more things might show up. But there are these critical tasks that are going to show up, and players are going to have to do these, or the system status of different sections will go down. Not only will that be bad for you in the current game, but it can be bad for you in future games if you don't get that up. So for example, here you need to place 2 dice that are the same. Here, these 2 dice both of them together need to be less than this die. And so you're going to have various, this one needs to be a 3 or less, or a 5 and more. You also have the possibility on some of these to put a robot. So let's say, for example, I have a robot and I roll a 12. I can put this robot here because I can split it. Robots can do a lot of work, so he can do a 6 and 6. So you need to do these critical tasks that are going to be showing up over the course of a game, but you also want to go ahead and do whatever the winning thing is. There's an operations division here where you'll go to have different meetings that you'll have, where you might get other tasks that you need to do. These are turn in a bunch of resources usually for getting more merit on the merit track. Merit's important because as your merit increases and you get to certain spots on the board, you will get special abilities. There's also a track here, which I really can't tell you what it does, but it's mind versus heart, and there's a round track to keep track of rounds. And so all this is going on. Players can be taking turns each round, placing dice on the board and doing actions, trying to stop bad things from going off and causing havoc, and then to do good things to increase the ship. Here's the deal, though. Each person is going to come with someone that they have a relationship with. So these people are there. It tells you a little bit about their story. So they're going to be involved in the game. And players are also going to have some objectives. You're going to have an objective for who you are. So the bioscience barracks here, they want to end the episode with the biosphere system at yellow or better. They want to make sure the biosphere division is good. If that happens, you're going to get one of these stars here, and this is a currency that you're using to essentially get special abilities over the course of the game. But you'll also have some personal objectives. Maybe you want to have 5 operation task cards in your hand, or after the player turn, step up around, have 1 crew at the operations, and 1 more of your crew seated within the biosphere division than any other player. So these cards are going to be in the game as personal things. They're not necessarily against everybody else, but they are not necessarily for the betterment of the other players either. Like I said, as time goes by, you can spend these stars that you get and get special abilities which can help you in future missions. Now, this is a Crossroads game, which means it comes with a Crossroads deck. Now, I got to be really cautious here because I don't want to spoil this game, but some of these cards are going to start in the Crossroads deck, and a lot more are going to be added. Some cards start in the Crossroads deck based on a character that you have in the game, and you will deal with that character, and the way you deal with them is going to grow and change that character. Other cards will happen each turn when someone places their leader. This is you, essentially. You will draw one of these cards, and this one, for example, says, was the officer seated within the biosphere division? So if you put them anywhere in this area here, then this card will go off. You'll read the card, and often the card will come with a couple of options, and you ask the player, you read them to the player, they will choose one, and something will happen. These might cause other cards to go into the deck or not. Many times these cards are going to not go off, but I would say there's usually like a 33% chance that they'll go off at any given point, because many times they deal with one of the 3 sections and or something else. So they're going to go off, and players are going to have kind of this unfolding story. Again, based on decisions that you make, sometimes players will vote on a decision that's going to change the future of the story. The game comes with a whole pile of envelopes. Each of these envelopes will add more story pieces. Once you open it, you'll add that stuff to the game. So there might be boards, tokens. There's even inside the box here, there's a whole section of cards, and these cards will be added to various decks based on what it tells you to do. At the end of the game, you're going to get to one of 8 different endings after 7 different missions, and then you can go through and play again if you so desire. The game comes with a sheet where you'll keep track of the different officers that you might have over the course of a game, and you can keep track of your ship's name and things. It will tell you a little bit. This is what you read when you first join, and you keep track of the episodes and things that you'll have here. And these are the player boards. Each board has a barracks, and they're bioscience or engineering or science or robotics. And this is where you'll keep your resources. It tells you what the different things are. You have different cards here. You have a spot on your own board that you can use that will usually help you and get the resources of your type. The resource tokens are just various tokens here that show the things. They're okay. They're nice little tokens. Again, they don't really mean anything to me as the game goes by. They don't feel like they're different kinds of resources, but they're good. The hidden resources of the game are kind of the same as what you see here. There's no like mind-blowing spectacular, hey, I found some plastic miniatures. No, it's kind of what you see. The dice are nice. They're good dice. I'm a dice guy, and I think these work fine. The board is good, although sometimes it's a little hard to read what everything does on the boards themselves. You're going to use fewer sections sometimes. This is used for a 1 to 2 player game. I'm sorry, not 1 to 2 player game, but this will always be used. This is numbers 1 through 2 because you're putting them in order. But anyway, sometimes these will show you the number of players that are in a game. Sometimes things will get canceled out and there's fewer spots to put people. The cards themselves are pretty easy to read, although I wish there was a few more pictures and things on the cards. There's a little less artwork that I prefer. All these cards look kind of the same. And in fact, most of the artwork in the game is not on the cards at all. It's only in that book. Now, the book itself is a nice, good quality book. This seems to be a Plaid Hat thing now, these books with these ring binders. It comes with a bookmark that you can keep in the book to determine where you're at. So you know for future missions, you just slide this into different spots. The art itself is fine. It looks a little stilted to me. You know, when I look at these, I think that this particular artist is better at still frames than they are at action. Like, this does not necessarily look like a cool action sequence to me. You know, when they just show people standing still, I think they look better. But again, that's just a personal preference. Otherwise, there's a lot of components in this game. I think they're pretty good. The biggest takeaway from Gen 7 that you need to understand before buying it is this is a campaign game, period. No question on this subject. This is a 7-game series that you can play through multiple times. Don't get me wrong, because there are 8 different endings, you could play through multiple times. You'll cross paths as you go through. Some of the missions are on the different ways to these 8 different endings at the end. But there's definitely a campaign method here. The very first mission that you play, I can't imagine anyone ever losing it, right? It's not that difficult, but it's kind of a way to get into the game and learn the game. But then you feel like you want more, then you go to the secondary missions and go on. But you can't just pull Gen 7 out and play a game of Gen 7. It's going to be part of this campaign. That's good and bad, right? It's good because of the great storyline involved and you're following these storylines, although I have a little bit more to talk about that in a bit. But you can't just play a singular game of it. I suppose you can play the first mission, but I don't feel like there's enough after the first mission. The first mission is basically, let's learn the rules together mission. And there's some, clues as to what's happening in the story. And you're like, ooh, this is interesting. And then it ends. And then you start getting into things. So take that in mind. If you're not looking for a campaign game, you need to pass on this one. This is not just a game you pull out and play one time. But if you are looking for a campaign game, here it is. Now, let's talk about the storyline and the game mechanisms. I like the game mechanisms. I didn't love this game as much as I thought I would because at the end of the day, you're placing dice and stopping bad things and helping good things. But the storyline's interesting. It's kind of a odd storyline, by which I mean the results of your decisions confirm your decisions. So for example, this is not in the story. Let's say I meet Bob and I'm sitting there and like, do I think Bob's a monster? A mean guy? Or is he a nice guy? Well, if I treat him like a nice guy, turns out he really is a nice guy. If I treat him like a monster, what? He is a monster. That's how I felt the decisions in this game were. I went into this game with a predisposition towards a specific character. And as soon as this character showed up, like in the first thing, I was like, well, that's bad. And you know what? Because I acted that way, that was bad. That's fine and all, but I just thought that wasn't interesting. There's probably some word for the storytelling beyond that. There's also one of the branches of this I thought was very tired storytelling. One of the specific branches, which again, I'm being vague here, but I was like, really? You managed to shoehorn this into this game? As it is, though, I think the thing behind this story is fascinating. This whole Gen 7. When you tell people about it, like, oh, like that Passengers movie. Well, not quite. That Passengers movie had 2 people. Here you have a whole living, breathing, vibrant community. Now, the crosswords in this one is way better than Dead of Winter. Having a card and it might go off, it's interesting. Some interesting things happen. You make decisions. You feel like your decisions matter in this game, and that's cool. And again, as the storyline goes through, each game's going to play very differently than the other ones, except, and it's another weird thing to me in this game, sometimes there's some major events in the game. Some things that if in real life I'd be like, let's deal with this, and yet you're still going around and working on your menial day-to-day tasks in the middle of some upheaval or things like that. And that felt a little odd, like, I think I would actually be not even worrying about keeping the ship around right now. It's a little odd sometimes. And again, when it comes down to the end of the day, you're just all working together to place workers. Now, there's this whole personal objective thing. It doesn't really get in the way of the game, but it can feel a little discouraging when you're like, well, you know what? I'm going to help us. We need to do this ship. And that doesn't increase your personal objective, so it feels like other players are doing better than you. They're not really, because at best they're just going to get special abilities, which help the ship out. It's not like you're at each other's throats. But I don't know. I almost wish that the merit things were chosen. And I know that this was added in the game as a game mechanism to make you not always play the most optimal way for the ship, occasionally do things a little off kilter because you want to do your own thing. And I don't have a problem with that, but it just sometimes it feels like you're the one who's like, oh, all right, fine, I'll jump on the grenade here and do this thing for the ship, but then I don't get as many merit points as other people do. So that being said, overall, I think the game is good. I do not think it is an amazing game, unfortunately. I was kind of looking for an amazing game, but I think it's good, and I think it has a solid campaign, good storylines, very well thought together. This is not a reskin Dead of Winter game. It works really well. The Crossroads things, like I said, they pop up way more often than Dead of Winter, and they're interesting choices. The story is well written. There's a lot of cool aspects to it, and I think people are going to enjoy it. Just remember, it's a campaign game. You're in it for 7 games. That is, well, I guess that is the name of it, Gen 7. Dice Tower Judgment, approved.